All right, you lot buckle up, because today we're diving deep on this Kier Starmer guy.
Oh, yeah. This should be good.
This dude went from human rights lawyer to fucking prime minister.
Hit better jump.
Like, what actual fuck? One minute you're arguing about legal loopholes, the next you're running a whole damn country.
Right.
How does that even happen?
It is a wild ride, but you might be surprised how much his legal background actually plays into his political career.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So young Kier, he was a bit of a political firebrand even as a teenager, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Joined the Labor Party, Young Socialists, at 16.
16 years old.
The wee rup. I can't help but chuckle imagining this future Sir Knight out there illegally flogging ice cream to raise funds.
What a story.
What a badass.
His early activism points to a deep-seated commitment to social justice. This isn't some fly-by-night politician chasing clout.
Right.
He's been in the game for the long haul.
Right. So he's got the activist street cred, but then he morphs into this high-flying human rights lawyer taking on some seriously massive cases.
Yeah, some big ones.
You've got the McLeibel case,
The classic.
a classic David versus Goliath showdown where he's fighting for free speech against a corporate behemoth.
Exactly.
And then there's his involvement in the Stephen Lawrence case,
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
where he helped finally bring those racist bastards who murdered that young man to justice.
Took them long enough.
A case that had been dragging on for years. Talk about fighting for the underdog.
Yeah, absolutely.
These cases highlight how Starmer's legal background instilled in him a deep understanding of the legal system, its limitations, and a fierce dedication to fairness.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you don't often see in politicians, who are often more concerned with political maneuvering than actual justice.
Yeah, you're right. They're usually just in it for themselves.
So he's got the heart, the brains, and the balls to stand up for what he believes in.
He does seem to.
But British politics is a fucking snake pit.
It is.
Could he handle that kind of pressure?
Well, his time as shadow Brexit secretary was a trial by fire.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Navigating that Brexit shit show while also dealing with the internal Labour Party chaos under Corbyn,
Right.
that takes some serious strategic thinking and resilience.
He definitely seemed to distance himself from Corbyn's leadership during that time.
Yeah, definitely.
Smart move, considering how that whole thing imploded.
For sure.
And then, boom, 2024 election rolls around.
Yeah.
And Labor wins in a landslide.
Yeah.
Nobody saw that coming.
It was a stunning victory.
It was.
No doubt a lot of factors contributed to that, though.
Like what?
You had voter fatigue with the Conservatives.
Yeah.
Starmer's ability to position himself as a moderate, competent alternative, and his success in pulling Labor back to the center ground.
And bam, just like that, he's prime minister.
It's great.
It's like some crazy underdog movie plot, except in this version, the underdog wins, but then gets saddled with a whole new level of bullshit. I guess that's how it always goes.
So what's he been up to since taking the top job? What are the highlights and the lowlights?
He's made some bold moves right out of the gate.
Like he axed that controversial Rwanda asylum plan, tried to tackle prison overcrowding by releasing prisoners early.
Releasing prisoners early.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And even pissed off some in his own party by refusing to scrap the two-child benefit cap.
Hold on. Releasing prisoners early. That sounds like a risky move.
Yeah.
Especially for a new PM trying to project an image of strength and stability.
It does a bit, doesn't it?
And what's the deal with keeping that benefit cap?
Yeah.
It seems like he's trying to appease everyone and ending up pissing off everyone at the same time. Is that what a changed Labor Party looks like?
He's definitely walking a tightrope,
He is.
trying to balance the demands of different factions within his party and appeal to a broad range of voters.
Yeah, I guess that's the job.
It's early days,
Yeah,
though,
absolutely.
so it's hard to say what the long-term consequences of these decisions will be.
Right. Well, we'll have to wait and see then.
We will. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Kier Starmer.
Back again.
When we left off, we were discussing his move to the center ground of British politics and trying to figure out what the hell Starmerism actually means.
Yes, Starmerism.
Right?
It's this vague political buzzword that everyone's throwing around, but nobody seems to know what it actually stands for. He keeps banging on about reform, but what does that actually look like in practice? Let's cut the crap and get specific.
Okay, so one of the key tenets of Starmer's vision seems to be a more decentralized approach to governing.
Okay.
He's talked about giving more power to local councils, mayors, and even floated the idea of replacing the House of Lords with a new elected body.
Hang on, he wants to get rid of the House of Lords.
Yep.
That's a pretty radical move, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought he was all about being Mr. Moderate these days. Is he just playing the political game, or does he actually believe in this stuff?
It's a bold move for sure, but it fits with this idea of shaking up the establishment and making institutions more accountable. Remember, he's been highly critical of the conservatives for stuffing the lords with their cronies and donors.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so less power for the elites, more power to the people.
Right.
Sounds good in theory, but what about the actual policies? How's he planning to improve people's lives?
Well, one of his major priorities is tackling the climate crisis.
Okay.
He's pledged to ditch fossil fuels for electricity generation by 2030, a pretty ambitious target, and he's been touting investment in green technologies and infrastructure as a way to create jobs and stimulate the economy.
So he's going full-on green, eh? That's going to piss off some of those old-school labor voters who rely on those dirty industries for their livelihoods. How's he going to square that circle?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be resistance from some quarters. It's a delicate balancing act, transitioning to a greener economy while protecting jobs and ensuring a just transition for workers in affected industries. He can't afford to alienate his base, but he also needs to show that he's serious about tackling climate change.
It's like he's constantly walking a tightrope,
Yeah.
trying to please everyone and inevitably pissing off someone no matter what he does.
Mm.
So the nature of politics, I guess.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about the scandals.
Oh, yeah.
Every politician has a few skeletons in their closet. What's the dirt on Starmer?
Well, there was the whole Beergate thing during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
When he was accused of breaking lockdown rules, he was eventually cleared by the police, but it did some damage to his reputation, especially among those who saw him as too cautious and lacking the common touch.
Ah, the classic, do as I say, not as I do. Hypocrisy, we've seen that one before. But what about his personal life? Any juicy gossip there? Affairs? Secret love children? Give me something.
Afraid not, Starmer is known for being quite private and reserved. He's not exactly a tabloid headline waiting to happen.
So he's a straight arrow, a family man, a bit boring even. I guess that fits with his Mr. Sensible image. But is that really what the UK needs right now? Someone who plays it safe and avoids taking risks. Maybe the UK needs a bit of shaking up.
That's the million-dollar question. Some argue that after years of chaos and uncertainty, what the UK needs is a steady hand at the helm, someone who can restore trust in institutions and bring about stability. They might call Starmer the calm after the storm.
Yeah, the safe pair of hands approach. But others might argue that what's needed is a bold, visionary leader. Someone who's willing to shake things up and tackle those deep-seated problems that have been festering for years. Someone who's not afraid to get their hands dirty.
Exactly, and that's the central dilemma of Starmer's premiership. Is he just trying to manage the decline of a once great nation, or does he genuinely have a vision for a better future and the courage to fight for it? Is he going to be a caretaker PM or a transformational one?
That's a damn good question, because while Starmer might not be the most charismatic or exciting politician, he's clearly a shrewd operator. He's managed to unite a deeply divided Labour Party, outmaneuver his opponents, and win a historic election. He's not a pushover, that's for sure.
He's proven himself to be a formidable political strategist, but now the real test begins. Can he turn those tactical skills into tangible, meaningful change for the people of the UK? Can he actually deliver on his promises?
Can he handle the pressure, the scrutiny, the inevitable betrayals and backstabbing that come with the territory? Can he navigate the treacherous waters of international diplomacy and global crises? Can he handle those Tory bastards constantly sniping at his heels?
Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, Starmer's time in the spotlight has only just begun, and whether he sinks or swims, his legacy will shape the future of the UK for years to come. He's got a lot riding on his shoulders.
Right, so we've talked about his political maneuvering, his policies, his scandals, and his vision or lack thereof. But we haven't really talked about the elephant in the room. The economy, let's face it, it's still a complete clusterfuck. Inflation is through the roof, energy bills are crippling people, and the pound is worth about as much as a soggy tissue. If you can't sort this shit out, he's toast.
You're absolutely right. The economy's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. If Starmer can't get a grip on this cost of living crisis, people are going to turn on him faster than you can say winter fuel payments.
And let's be real, nobody wants to be the prime minister who makes people choose between heating their homes and eating.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for riots in the streets.
For sure.
And speaking of riots, let's not forget about the recent unrest after that Southport stabbing.
Oh, yeah.
Starmer talked tough,
He did.
promising to crack down on the rioters and bring in emergency powers. But then that asshat Elon Musk called him out
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
for focusing solely on far-right involvement,
Oh, really?
ignoring the complex social and economic factors that contribute to these kinds of outbursts.
Yeah, it's never that simple, is it?
Yeah, it's easy to point fingers and call for a crackdown when you're sitting in your ivory tower.
Exactly.
But Starmer needs to address the root causes of this anger and frustration, not just the symptoms.
Hmm.
Otherwise, this is just going to keep happening.
He's got to find a way to bridge the divides in this country, not just paper over the cracks, and that's a hell of a lot easier said than done.
So we've got the economy and the shitter social unrest bubbling over. And let's not forget those pesky Tories lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce on any sign of weakness.
They're like a zombie horde, aren't they?
They are.
They may have taken a beating in the last election, but they just keep coming back.
They do.
They'll be sniping from the sidelines, leaking scandalous stories to the press, and generally trying to make Starmer's life a living hell.
It's a blood sport, this British politics game, and Starmer's got to be on top of his game if he wants to survive, let alone thrive.
He's also got to manage the internal Labour Party dynamics, keeping those various factions happy, from the old school union types to the progressive social justice warriors.
Right.
It's a constant juggling act. If he alienates any part of his base, he risks a rebellion from within.
So it's a balancing act, a tightrope walk, a fucking minefield, whatever cliche you want to use. It's clear that Starmer's got his work cut out for him, but is he up to the task?
Honestly, it's too early to say. His premiership is still in its early days, and there's so many factors at play.
Sure.
But what's fascinating is that he's already shown a willingness to make tough decisions, even if they're unpopular. He's not afraid to ruffle feathers.
Yeah, he's definitely got balls. He's axed winter fuel payments, released prisoners early, and stood up to the Tories.
He has.
But the big question remains, is this just tactical maneuvering to stay in power? Or does he have a genuine vision for the future of the UK?
That's what we've been trying to unpack in this deep dive. What the hell is Starmerism?
Exactly.
Is it just a rebranding of Blairism, a cynical attempt to win back middle-class voters? Or is it something more substantial, a genuine attempt to build a fairer, more just society?
It's a damn good question, and I'm not sure we've got a definitive answer.
Me neither.
But what's clear is that Starmer's premiership will be a fascinating chapter in British political history, full of challenges, contradictions, and maybe even a few surprises.
It will be interesting to see what happens.
It will?
He's a complex figure, a man of contradictions. He's a former human rights lawyer who's willing to make pragmatic compromises. He's a socialist who's embraced fiscal responsibility.
Right.
He's a quiet, reserved man who's found himself thrust into the most public of roles.
It's like one of those Shakespearean tragedies, but with less iambic pentameter and more political spin. Only time will tell how this story ends.
So to wrap things up, I guess the question for you, dear listener, is this. Do you believe in Kier Starmer? Do you think he can deliver on his promises? Or is he just another politician full of empty words and broken dreams?
Think about it, talk about it, argue about it, but whatever you do, don't be indifferent, because the future of this country is at stake, and it's up to all of us to decide what kind of world we want to live in.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the great Starmer enigma. Until next time, keep your wits about you and your bullshit detectors on high alert. The game of politics never ends.